Joining me now is Liberal Senator Hollie Hughes. Nice to see you, Hollie. Thank you for joining me. I would love to know your thoughts, firstly, on the Prime Minister's claim that he is the better placed leader than Peter Dutton to forge a relationship with Donald Trump. What do you think?
Oh, I think maybe there was a bit too much happy juice over the Christmas period for the Prime Minister. I mean, this guy is living on a different planet to the rest of us. We know Donald Trump, I think, maybe is saying a little bit more with a bit more verbosity than he may do when he actually takes office. But the strength of his leadership we saw 4 years ago, I think we'll see again. He certainly doesn't suffer fools. And I think Albanese and many of his cabinet, their comments about Trump and the derogatory comments that they've made about him and the government that he led is not going to do them any favours. And I think it is very interesting that Scott Morrison was at Mar-a-Lago and Kevin Rudd was donning the Crocs watching the cricket at home in Queensland. I mean, it is actually embarrassing. I think it's a little bit of a sneak peek preview of what's coming with the Trump presidency, and it's not going to be rolling out the red carpet for Albanese and his captain's picks in the US.
No, I completely agree with you. And as I said in that editorial, Albo can say, oh, it's all good when it comes to China. I'll introduce him to the Pacific leaders. Please, it's just an embarrassing concept for him to come out and say that. It's ridiculous.
Well, and I think what's really important to note as well is Donald Trump has been very, very strong when it comes to Israel and the return of the hostages from Hamas and, threatening to rain hell down on Hamas if those hostages are not released before January 20. Whilst we have a government who has fundamentally destroyed our relationship with one of our closest allies in Israel, the only democracy in the Middle East, I don't think, as Israel is one of the US's very close friends, that also bodes well for this left-wing Albanese government who is doing everything they can to appease the anti-Israel, anti-Semitic sentiment that they're allowing these protests to continue. They're allowing anti-Semitism to increase. They're destroying our relationship with Israel. I think that is going to do far more damage than any buddying up he might have done with the Prime Minister of Vanuatu.
Yeah, and the dancing he did on the Cook Islands, it pales into insignificance when you think about what's going on in Israel. You're spot on, Hollie. Now, look, Anthony Albanese has vowed he will not wait for the polls to be called to help Australians with the cost of living. I'm not sure where he got that from, but he's told the Daily Telegraph that, quote, Australians will be better off under us. And he's also accused the coalition of manipulating the migration system, saying the fact that COVID visas were still in place when we came to office was something we had to address. The manipulation of the migration system has been underestimated. We have had to take action, and we are. Hollie, I'm not sure what manipulation he's referring to then, but let's not forget we've had more than 1 million migrants come into this country under Labor. It's had a massive impact not only on housing, but also on inflation.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is he calls the election. And I actually feel sorry for all everyday Australians at the moment struggling with cost of living. As a politician and having been around politics for over 20 years, it was kind of an unwritten rule that we kind of left the Australian people alone until Australia Day. Let them have a break with their family, get themselves set up for the new year. Instead, they've been completely bombarded by this Prime Minister out there doing press opportunities and photo opportunities at every location he can find in any different headwear he can find. It's just he's in election mode. He's in full-blown campaign mode. And to the Australian public, I apologise that this guy hasn't just called the election so you know what's going on. The reason he's talking about we're going to give you cost of living relief or we're going to do it before the election, well, they've had nearly 3 years in office. And there is not one Australian out there who was better off today than they were when this government was elected. Every day Australians are finding it harder and harder to put a roof over their head, to put groceries on the table and to keep the lights on, and we know that. The $275 was promised off your electricity bill. They're now trying to claim that the $300 rebate funded by you, the taxpayer, was somehow equivalent to this $275 that was supposed to come off from cheaper energy. These guys have absolutely run this country into the ground. Australia cannot afford another Albanese government term, and they have no record to speak of. So they're now out there making these ridiculous comments that somehow migration hasn't increased under them and it's not their fault. Like, it's just, As I said, little too much happy juice at Christmas. I don't know what the focus group said, but clearly a lot of the Labor Party state secretaries, etc., were out for Christmas vacation when this messaging was done.